Hey, everyone, it's Rob Ryder. Today, I'd like some help telling Alex Jones of InfoWars things he needs to know. And that is that martial law was, is, and continues. He's trying to stop martial law. That's what he keeps talking about, but brother, it's already going on. So on 7/19/2019, I'm going to inform Alex Emric Jones of the fact that we're under martial law and that the DoD, Department of Defense, claims to be the fourth estate. And these aren't things I've said. These are things that I've shown come from what they said. And so, Alex, I have a website, not website, but on YouTube, Rob Ryder, ROBBBRYDER. I've done lots of videos. There's over 300 videos. I don't want to get into all my videos, but for this one here, the DoD is the fourth estate on newer is really the things I'm talking about now that I'm going to condense into something to give to you in my hopes that you'll give it to President-elect Trump so that he can be the President of the United States. But unfortunately, today he is not because he didn't follow the procedure. Alex, can you imagine? So the DoD is the fourth estate. Let me show you where that comes from. Right? Again, I didn't say it. Fourth Estate 101. This is from the Worldwide HR Training event for the Washington Headquarters Services, Human Resources Directorate for the Department of Defense. Right? They say that they are. And if you were to go in this, I really don't have time to go through these now, but in here it talks about DoD Fourth Estate. Here's the organizational chart for the DoD Fourth Estate. The DoD says it's the fourth estate. Here's a Department of Defense instruction where it's for the Senior Executive Service, about the fourth estate. The fourth estate. So, whatever that means to the DoD, they're claiming it. Hey, this is one of your court cases, by the way. I might as well show you right now. So, one of the things in here, right, is they're saying Alex Jones et al. Is the defendant. Well, Alex Jones doesn't exist. That is not your full legal name. According to Wikipedia, your full legal name is Alexander Emric Jones. Well, Alex, if they're not charging you in your full legal name, then you're not secure in your person. That's a violation of the Fourth Amendment of the Constitution. You're not secure in your persons, places, houses, or effects from unreasonable searches and seizures because they're not using your full legal name and they're not using their full legal name. And the judge isn't using his full legal name. Nobody is using their proper identification in a court case. Well, then the damn thing can't be legal. Right? So that court that you're in has nothing to do with the state. It doesn't exist as a state court. If anything, it's a court under the DoD because it's got a gold fringe flag in it. Hey, this is a courtroom in the state of Texas, the state of Texas, and there is a gold fringed flag. Now, Alex, people will try to tell you, well, that means that's admiralty law, and I just have to disagree and say, no, it got nothing to do with the Navy. That's the flag of the Army. Now, it's the symbol of our nation. It is the flag of the United States, but it can only fly at Army installations. And I'll show you where it says it. And so any place that flag is, that means, well, this thing is a military courtroom because that's the only courtroom a flag with gold fringe can fly in. So either this is a military tribunal of the United States or it's simulating one, and that's a war crime. And so these are the realities of the life. And this is why you need to know, hey, martial law was, is, and continues. And that the DoD is the fourth estate. And that Donald John Trump should be the commander-in-chief, but he hasn't filed the procedures to claim the office yet. He didn't take proper oath of office. He actually has to take two. He only took one. And then he said, so help me God. So that kind of, that violated the sixth article of the Constitution. which is the other point in this. Anybody who takes an oath claiming an office under the United States is taking an oath that at the end they say, "So help me God." Well, that is a religious test, and that would be an offense against the 6th Article of the Constitution. So they're not taking a constitutional oath. They may be taking an oath. I'm not saying they're not taking an oath. I'm saying they're not taking a constitutional oath, or an oath that would satisfy the 6th Article so that they could hold a civil office. And so that's why the DOD is the 4th estate, because the other 3 estates, the legislature, the judiciary, and the administrative branch, are all vacated. None of those people have a proper oath of office. They've taken an oath that says, "So help me God." So they cannot be holding a civil office under the Constitution. It's crazy, ain't it? You think about that for a minute, and it makes the whole world a lot simpler to understand. So I'm going to continue on, though. So why do I say martial law was, is, and continues? Well, on September 15th, 1863, President Lincoln imposed congressionally authorized martial law. The authorizing act allowed the president to suspend the habeas corpus throughout the entire United States, which he had already done under his own authority on April 27th, 1861. He didn't think he needed anybody's permission. He just did it himself. Lincoln imposed the suspension on prisoners of war, spies, aiders, and abettors of the enemy, as well as on other classes of people, such as draft dodgers. Well, ain't that something? So he declared martial law. Now, John Roberts, the alleged justice of the Supreme Court, Chief Justice. Now, I haven't seen his oath of office yet, so until I see it, I've not seen any that are proper. So he's not a constitutional officer unless he's followed the Constitution. But he had said in one of his lectures he gave at a college, I think it was. I think it's in the Virginia Law Review, that when Lincoln did this, he was in the District of Columbia, right? So he declared martial law over the District of Columbia, which is the nation's capital for the United States, which isn't the same as saying any of the 50 states within the United States, but this is the one nation under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. That is what he declared it over. Well, the thing about declaring martial law, according to General Orders number 100, the Lieber Code, which was written for Lincoln by some dude named Lieber, if I'm not mistaken, instructions for the government of the armies of the United States in the field, it said in Article 1, a place, district, or country occupied by an enemy stands in consequence of the occupation under the martial law of the invading or occupying army. Whether any proclamation declaring martial law or any public warning to the inhabitants has been issued or not, martial law is the immediate and direct effect and consequences of occupation or conquest. The presence of a hostile army proclaims its martial law. Okay, the presence of a hostile army proclaims martial law. Well, what's the presence? How would you know that the United States has been there? Because they left their flag in the state of Texas. Number 2, martial law does not cease during the hostile occupation except by special proclamation ordered by the commander-in-chief or by special mention in a treaty of peace, concluding the war when the occupation of place territory continues beyond the conclusion of peace and the conditions of the same. Well, we all know that the Civil War ended in an armistice. There was no peace treaty. And so unless some president in the District of Columbia has issued a proclamation ending the martial law that was congressionally agreed to in 1863, then it's still ongoing. And, that ain't happened until somebody shows me the proclamation. It hasn't happened. And so we're still under martial law since 1863. Gold fringe flags in every courtroom. That makes it a military courtroom. Now, Lindsey Graham and Brett Kavanaugh, they both agreed the United States is engaged in an armed conflict. That was during the the Senate confirmation for Kavanaugh. Yeah, he knows the difference between criminal law and the laws of armed conflict, and he agrees that we're engaged in a armed conflict right now, that was the reason for the act that Bush passed 3 or 4 days after 9/11. And ever since then, that's been another armed conflict. Well, the Cold War was an armed conflict. The war on drugs is an armed conflict. The United States is always at war. They always have these emergency powers. They're always writing presidential executive orders, right, for ongoing national emergencies. So there isn't a functioning civil government. It's a government being run under the DOD, which can be good or bad depending on what you know. And we don't know enough for it to be good, but if we did, it could be very good for us and very bad for people like Nancy Pelosi or any attorney or any other member of the House or Senate, or you pick the person who's claiming to have authority under the United States but has failed to follow the procedures necessary to claim that authority by having executed the proper oaths of office. And that was in those other videos I did. I really can't get into it anymore right now. But because we're under an armed conflict, well, then the DOD Law of War Manual is in play. And it says in its section 4, at 17.2, spies, a person may only be considered a spy when acting clandestinely or under false pretenses. In a zone of operation of a belligerent, he or she obtains or endeavors to obtain information with the intent of communicating it to hostile party. Well, that's what an attorney's doing, a judge is doing. Anytime you go to court, all of those things are happening right there. When you get pulled over by a cop, all of those things are happening right there. Right? The state of Texas has no jurisdiction over a national of the United States. It's just we can't prove our American national status yet. The other things we'll be talking about. So what does it mean to act clandestinely? It means deliberately concealing or misrepresenting one's identity. Okay, well now let's go look at those court cases of Alex Jones. All right, so Alex E. Jones, InfoWars LLC, and Free Speech LLC are the defendants, right? Alex E. Jones is no man's name. I don't know if Leonard Posner are or Veronica De La Rosa are either. Very well could be they have middle names or, second names, given names. And this is the thing they do, Alex. Actually, this Leonard Posner and Veronica De La Rosa is a legal fiction. It isn't two people. It's the name of a legal fiction that's been created by the attorneys acting like they're acting for those people, but they've created this legal fiction. Leonard Posner and Veronica De La Rosa. But Alex E. Jones, so that doesn't exist, right? Leonard Posner and Veronica De La Rosa, that's a thing. That isn't a person. And Alex E. Jones isn't a person. It's a thing. InfoWars LLC, is that the full name of your company? Free Speech Systems LLC, if those are the full names of the companies, well, those could be. But the point is, the plaintiff doesn't exist. So there really isn't any plaintiff in your court case. And it isn't against you because they're not using your name. What else do we have? I saw some. We'll look at that in a second. Here's another one that you had going. This is U.S. District Court, Western District of Virginia, right, where the plaintiff is Brennan M. Gilmore. Sorry, that gentleman doesn't exist. Right, if you said, let me see your identification, if it didn't say Brennan M. Gilmore on it, then this man would be a liar. He's using a false identity. He could be a spy. I did notice that these attorneys here, they seem in this case to be using their full legal name. They may be better attorneys because this is in the federal court. It could be they're trying to do it right. But the defendant isn't you. It's a legal fiction. They're going to try to get you to agree to be this fiction. Don't get me wrong, but that isn't you. You need to raise your hand and say, hey, that's not my name. How come your attorney is letting you be prosecuted in this court case. Look, your legal fiction is being represented by another legal fiction. In a case against a legal fiction being represented by people that are using their full legal name. Well, I would say these attorneys here have standing, and Andrew M. Grossman doesn't have anything except your money. Now you got Elizabeth Ann Scully, da-da-da-da. So, you hire all these attorneys. Alex, why don't you ask about this fucking flag? Hey, how come there's a gold fringe flag in the courtroom? This guy just showed me that means that's an Army flag. He said, go look at AR 840-10, which is what I'm telling you to do. Go look at AR 840-10, Alex. That would be this regulation here, right? Army Regulation 840-10. We take this stuff serious, brother. You go in here. Now, this is a older version. This is like from 1998. For whatever reason, the first time I went to look for one, I found this one, and I highlighted it. So I like to continue to use it, but it's not the most recent version, so they don't look quite the same anymore. But it talks about what the purpose of this AR is, and it's the authority for these items and their basis of issue. Why is this written? To tell you when you can use the flag. Unauthorized use of official flags. There is no law that permits the sale, loan, or donation of flags, guidons, or streamers to individuals or organizations not in the military service except as indicated in 1 and 2. So that means any flag we talk about in this regulation is covered under this unauthorized use of official flags. It's not in here unless it's an official flag. Well, 2 places it can go. It can go to an educational institution. Hey, that's why there's American flags hanging up inside the classroom. Or it can go to a retired general officer. Or it can be used at meetings and ceremonial occasions recognized by U.S. Army organizational associations. May display a replica of the organization's distinguishing flag, but I don't know if that means the U.S. flag or not. The private use or display. The private, unofficial use or display of positional colors, distinguishing flags, organizational colors, or guidons is prohibited, Alex. So you can't do this unless it's proper. That would be a no-no. That would piss the Army off. They may come take their frickin' flag or take you and leave their flag. So who gets the national flag? Well, here's a list of all the people. And I don't think you're going to find a courtroom in the state of Texas being listed. National flag. And then we go to the national color. Got national flag, national color. And it turns out they're the same thing. When they say national color, they're talking about the flag with the gold fringe on it. Here's all the people. Military, 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 right? Nothing in here about state of. Anywhere. So any place you see a flag means it's the United States. It's not the state. Chapter 2. This is where the meat and potatoes is, Alex. So, right, show this to your attorney. Or show this to Trump. Or, show it to the Army people you know. And then have them call me, and I'll explain it to them. I don't have time to explain it to you, but they already know. They just need to get a few things lined up, and then we can put this thing to... We put an end to the craziness. So, the flag of the United States is the symbol of our nation. The Union, white stars on the field of blue, is the honor point of the flag. The flag of the United States will be displayed outdoors at all Army installations. Where? Where? Did it say the Navy? No, it said the Army. Army installations. The flag of the United States will be displayed outdoors at all Army installations. Well, let's see. That means you see one at a post office. That must be an Army installation. You see one outside the courtroom. Well, that must be an Army installation. You see one in front of the governor's mansion. Well, the Capitol. Well, that must be an Army installation. Something to do with that. The flag of the United States will be displayed outdoors at all Army installations. Only one flag of the United States will be flown at one time at any continental United States Army installation. Well, then you say, well, shit, how can that be? They're all over the place. Well, as it turns out, the Army considers Michigan to be an Army installation. Every state is considered an installation. Get to that in a second. So just pay attention to that word installation. We're talking about the state. Installations which have other federal agencies or tenants may permit those federal agencies to display the U.S. flag on the front of their facility. Wherever you see it, got something to do with the United States. The flag of the United States is the only flag that may be flown from the flagpole over a CONUS Army installation unless an exception is granted. Over a CONUS, unless an exception is granted. Okay, so a lot of places you see the American flag and then a state flag, but the state flag is flying below the American flag. Well, they must have an exception. Because there's the American flag. The flag of the United States should be displayed with foreign national flags at overseas installations. Blah, 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 blah. The flag of the United States will be displayed from reveille to retreat. National flags listed below are for outdoor display. And so it goes into the different size flags, 20 foot by 38, 8 by 17. You got a field flag, storm flag. All these are flags without gold fringe. Until we get down to national flags listed below are for indoor display and for use in ceremonies and parades. For these purposes, the flag of the United States will be of rayon banner cloth or heavyweight nylon, trimmed on 3 sides with gold and yellow fringe, 2 1/2 inches wide. So it would end up looking something like this. Just take a ruler up there and measure it. See if it's a counterfeit. Okay. It will be the same size or larger as any other flags displayed or carried at the same time. We got 2 different sizes. You got the 4 foot 4 inch by 5 foot 6 inch. The size will be displayed with the United States Army flag, organizational flag, da 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 da. And then we got this other one, which is about a 3 by 4. It will be displayed with the Army field flag, distinguishing flag, organizational colors within the offices. It will also be displayed within the offices listed in C below. Well, where is it authorized then? The flag of the United States is authorized in office, headquarters, and organization, authorized a positional color, distinguishing flag, organizational color. Organization of battalion size or larger, temporary or permanent, not otherwise authorized a flag of the United States. Military offices, not otherwise authorized, indoor flag of the United States for the purposes of administering oaths of office. Military courtroom, U.S. Army element of joint commands, military groups, mission. One flag is authorized for any one headquarters operating in dual capacity. Hey, there's nothing in here about it being in a state court or the township hall or the city hall or the county commissioner's office or any of these other places that you would find a gold fringe flag. So, because they're there, well, then it has to have something to do with the Army, right? The 4th Estate's in charge. What else? Was there anything else that I really needed to tell you? I think that's about it. I don't need to beat this horse anymore. That's the way it is. Use and display by civilians. The use and display of the U.S. flag by civilian groups and organizations are governed under 36 U.S.C. 173. The new version, it says 4 U.S.C. 7 or something like that, I think, which is Title 4 is actually the flag code. But back in 98, it was 36 U.S.C. 173. Civilians who inquire about the display of the flag should be referred to this statute. Point is, it can only fly officially, and officially only at military installation. So how come they're flying all over your state? Well, that's because of this. DoD installations will have no more than one official mail metering site. Now we're talking about mail for a second. Official mail, by the way, excluding National Guard statewide operations wherein the state is considered an installation. DoD component outgoing mail must transit the installation's metering site if available. So as it turns out, the military, of course, they have their own postal service. The military postal service, it's all over the state. And if you're a member of the military, you should have a military postal address, even if you're in the States. Because this is page 2 in some APO guide. This had to do with the Union of Military and United States Postal Service. On February 2nd, 1959, Department of Defense and the Post Office Department executed an interagency agreement. So this wasn't with the USPS, it was with the Post Office Department. Department of Defense and the Post Office Department executed an interagency agreement. The agreement was comprehensive in scope, addressing all aspects of mail service to military personnel serving in the United States and abroad. Provide postal service for the armed forces in areas where U.S. Civil Postal Service operate, to include the establishment of civil post offices on military installations and the usual postal services, mail handling, carrier delivery and collection, and special delivery services consistent with U.S. postal laws and regulations, normal standards of the Post Office Department, and changing military requirements. Well, that means that if you're in the military, and I'm going to show you that if you've ever served, you're in the military, still, you should have a military address. And so I don't know how to get it yet, but I can tell I got to get this fucking address. That's why you're not getting any official mail, because you don't have official address. They won't send it to a non-official. They will not send official mail to anywhere but an official mail address. And you get those through the military, or for being in the military. You may get them from the USPS, but you need to tell them, hey, this is a military address. Anyways, that's a developing storyline for me. So other people I know that, I've seen my postal videos. You want to go get this. All right, this guide will explain options of APO and FPO. I don't even know what the name of the thing is. Oh, here we go. APO FPO guide for AAFES suppliers. Download that one and get this DoD manual here. Instructions 5425.09. And become an expert at the military postal service, and then tell me how we use it. Because I really don't have time to look at all this stuff. I'd like to. I wish I could say I'm going to, but there are only so many hours in the day. So, Alex, I want to show this too while we're here. All right, for those who would say, well, the Cold War was never a declared war, well, they gave out certificates of recognition for it. All right, this is from the Department of Defense, Secretary of Defense. In recognition of your service during the period of the Cold War, to September 1945 to 26 December 1991, which happens to be the day that the USSR collapsed. In promoting peace and stability for this nation, the people of the nation are forever grateful. But they issued it in the guy's middle initial name. So, you know why? Because he followed the directions that were on the piece of paper. Because this is, anybody who served during this time can have this. I'm just now finding this out myself, so I could get one. But when you look at the form they want you to fill out, because you got to fill it out and send it to them, to the military, and I have on there your name, then it'll say middle initial. Well, you need to learn, you don't have a middle initial. You don't have a middle name. You got a given name. Robert Allen is my given name. It's not Robert first name and Allen middle name. No, it's Robert Allen. It's my given name. It goes in the first name box. I don't have a middle name. I don't have a middle initial. But because they do this, this is how they took your spirit. Because they say that your middle name is immaterial. And anything immaterial is spiritual. And so this is how they stole your identity, by taking away your middle name. I've done many videos on this stuff, Alex. It's actually happening all the time. But I can't get into too much depth in any one part because, hey, there's only so many hours in the day and we need to move on. So give me a second to pull up a few other things. Okay, so since the DoD is the government, then the DoD manual is, the manual for the law the government's going to be using. Then we should be looking in that manual to see what it says, and it's the DoD Law of War Manual, which you can download online. Just put in Department of Defense Law of War Manual, and you'll be looking at a copy. It's got all these different sections in, and one is 17, which is non-international armed conflicts. Well, if it's not international, then it must be domestic. And we have a domestic armed conflict because the Civil War has never been ended, right? There's no treaty of peace, there's no proclamation, there's no ending of the martial law. It's still going on. Well, the same thing happened in the First World War. There was an armistice. And they try to make it sound like they did a peace treaty, but it was all revoked, and it's just an armistice. And an armistice is just a cessation in the hostilities, but it's not a treaty, right? And so because of these things, we're not under a civil government with domestic law. We're under a military government under military law. And so what happens during non-international armed conflict? So this chapter 17 addresses laws of war, rules applicable to armed conflict that are not international character. That's pretty simple. Emergency laws and regulations. Many states have laws. Now, when they say state here, they're talking about United States, not Michigan, right? Because this is international, public international law, law of war, not the law of peace, which is the other public international law. We're not in that. We're, for what, unfortunately, we find ourselves under laws of war. But because that is the law, that's what we need to use to our advantage. And that's how we'll get to the laws of peace, by executing the laws of war that have been made for our benefit. And to do that, we need to get the Army to understand that, and that starts with the Commander-in-Chief. And to get him to understand it, well, Alex, you need to go tell him, man. You need to go get your oath of office straightened out. But here's what's going on in the meantime. Emergency laws and regulations. Many states have laws permitting government to alter or suspend laws, so that the United States can, alter and suspend laws, such as declaration of martial law, establishment of curfews, controls and movements of persons and traffic. That would be commerce. Traffic is commerce. To enact emergency regulations, such as establishment of monetary and trade regulations, rationing of food, fuel, and other critical materials. All these things are happening. And to take other steps to protect the public, such as issuance of identification cards. Well, that's what's not happening. We should all have an identification card issued by the Department of Defense. That's a Geneva Convention Identification Card. And if you had that card, Alex, you would be protected by the Geneva Convention from people doing to you what they're doing now in these courts that are pretending to be military courts. But they're not military courts, and the simplest way to see that there aren't is nobody's swearing to anything. Right? Nobody swears to their complaints against you. Well, then it's not a military court. In a military court, you fucking swear to shit. If you're going to, charge somebody, you're going to put your name online and swear to it. Well, that doesn't happen in what passes as civil courts. Yet there's the flag. So in this court, with this flag standing there in the back, some attorney's going to pretend that he's bringing a charge against somebody who doesn't exist, and then get you to agree to be the thing that doesn't exist. Right? Make you responsible for it. Did you know, Alex, that attorneys have given up their constitutional rights? They gave up their First Amendment right to join a union called the bar so that they could practice in the courts of state of Michigan, state of Texas, state of whatever that doesn't really exist in the first place. And so the bar, back in the 1500s, it was considered a fourth estate in France, where that the members of the bar had basically, captured all the power because they made it everything about being done by a particular procedure. Forget who's right or wrong. No, it's by our procedure. You don't follow the procedure, well, you don't get any relief. And since we don't know the procedure because we're not members of the bar, we always do it wrong. But these people aren't taking the oath of office in a full legal name. They don't have a commission from the state in a full legal name. They don't have a commission for the United States in a full legal name. So they're not judicial officers. They're at best some kind of military associated contractor who's not following the military's law and instead is using his office to take your property. Well, that would be a larceny. And so I believe that all these people are under the UCMJ. And in fact, I told a story just last week, Alex, that a guy called me and said that somebody he knew was in prison, and he wrote to a general and said that he had been the victim of a simulated military tribunal. And the Army came and got the guy out of prison. I don't have any more facts than that. It's what a guy told me on the phone, and, I like to believe what people tell me. So, anyways, we want to get this ID card. Anybody in the military should be able to have one. In fact, if they look, and they're in the military, they have one now. It says Geneva Conventions Identification Card on it. But the DoD issues numerous styles of cards, and not all of them are Geneva Convention ID cards. And that's the one you need to have, because that's the one that protects you at a time of war, such as an armed conflict. And then as it turns out, hey, they can establish of special emergency courts. Special courts, as part of its emergency regulation, a nation, right, because it said a state, well, that would be a nation, not Michigan, but a nation state, the United States, because this is international law, and Michigan isn't recognized in international law by another country, right? The United States is. So special courts, as part of its emergency regulation, the United States may establish special or emergency courts for cases involving unprivileged belligerents. Well, who would they be? Well, those would be people that aren't protected persons under the frickin' Geneva Convention because they don't have an ID card. So you don't have an ID card, you're going to go to the emergency court involving unprivileged belligerents or other persons suspected of committing offenses related to a non-international armed conflict. Well, what would be some of the reasons to suspect you? Well, if you're using a middle initial name to identify yourself, that would be one reason, because that's you hiding your identity. Now you're a suspect. Such courts must be regularly constituted and afford all the judicial guarantees that are recognized and indispensable by civil peoples. Such as courts may be distinguished based on nationality, which is why they don't want to ever have us on the census that we're a citizen of the United States. To be a citizen of the United States, you have to be a national of the United States first. You would be an American national, right? So it's all about your nationality. It don't matter if you're a citizen under their rules. What matters is that you're a national under their rules. Because as a national of the United States, at a time of war, you should be given a Geneva Convention Identification Card and be protected by the DoD. But they're not giving us the damn cards. Acquiring medical status, including an armband special identity document, right? This is the Red Cross. This is the other way you should be protected. You say, look, I'm a volunteer of the Red Cross, and if you are, then you're supposed to be able to get an armband and a special identity document showing that you're protected by the Geneva Convention, because the United States is engaged in an armed conflict, domestic and international. Determining the status of detainees in cases of doubt. Identification card will be used to help clarify status of detainee, but you don't necessarily have to have it, right? Identification card is not, therefore, an indispensable condition of the right to be treated as a prisoner of war, but a supplemental safeguard. So whether you have the card or not, you need to tell your attorney, look, I'm protected under the Geneva Convention. The United States is engaged today in an armed conflict, and the courtroom that we're going into has a gold fringe flag. Therefore, it must be a military tribunal, military courtroom. Well, in a military courtroom, the only law that applies is the UCMJ. Right? So you need to try me under the UCMJ, which means now they need to follow the Uniform Code of Military Justice. They're not following anything right now. They're just, using their office to seize your property. So I say, well, if they don't stop, that means they're the belligerent. Right? They're the ones engaged in the insurrection. So, okay, hang on just a second, Alex. I'm just about done. Okay, so a few more. In Chapter 9 of the same book, this is the Law of War Manual for the DoD. Issue of identification cards to persons liable to become POWs. Parties to the Geneva Prisoner of War Convention must provide persons under their jurisdiction who are liable to become POWs with identity cards. This card must show the owner's surname, it'd be his last name, first names, first and middle names, right? So no initials, all names. Army, rank, Army, regimental, personal, or serial identification, right? So whatever it takes, you're either in the military, you got a person number, serial number, and your date of birth. In accordance with this requirement, DoD practice has been to issue all members of the U.S. Armed Forces identification cards that indicate their status under the Geneva Convention. An individual's loss of identification card issued by a state party, United States, is not a basis for denial of POW status. Civilians in the hands of a party to the conflict. Right, that's where that came from. So, go look at this manual, DoD manual, go to section 9 and 10, civilians in the hands of a party to the conflict. Right, that's a chapter, and read it. Because in there it says National Accounting for Protected Persons. This is the status we're trying to achieve, protected persons. In its power, a proper accounting of the detention or assigned residence of protected persons is an important responsibility of the United States in relation to protected persons in their power. In order to provide a full and accounting as possible, and in order to minimize misidentification, the United States must obtain detailed information about certain protected persons in its power for forwarding through its National Protected Persons Information Bureau. We got to find where that is, Alex. Where's the National Protected Persons Information Bureau? We want to register. Through its National Protected Person Information Bureau to the Central Information Agency for Protected Persons. Where in the hell are these things? And why aren't our names in the database? Alex, please go ask Trump. Right? Commander-in-Chief Trump. He wants to be Commander-in-Chief. Well, then, come on, Commander-in-Chief. Let's get this done. Where's the National Protected Persons Information Bureau? To the Central Information Agency for Protected Persons. And how do we get on it? And please tell Alex Jones, Donald John Trump, and Alex Jones will inform the rest of us, and we'll all show up, and we'll sign the papers. And those that don't want to, well, I don't care about them. I'm not worried about people that don't want to. I'm worried about those that do. I want my Geneva Convention Identification Card. I know what it means. It means any place there's a flag of the United States, I'm protected. Right now I don't have one, so I'm seen as a belligerent. That's what they're telling us. Right? And until you somehow overcome the presumption that you're a belligerent with the fact that you are a protected person, which could be as simply as you telling these people in the courtroom, look, I'm protected under the Geneva Convention. You got a gold fringe flag in here. I need to have a court-martial court. You can't do this except in a court-martial court. Where's the commanding general? Where's the court-martial convening authority? Right? If somebody wants to bring a charge against me, it needs to be under the court-martial court in the Uniform Code of Military Justice and the court-martial manual. And claim to be a protected person, because as a protected person, you're only liable to the UCMJ. And it doesn't matter if you're in the military, but if you're in the military for sure, but anybody. Right? And rebut the presumption and at least do it and see what they say. I don't know what they're going to do. Nobody's done it yet. I'm just mentioning it now because I'm reading the shit and trying to get some action with it. So I'll do a video on things I'm trying with it. But today, what I'm trying to do is get a hold of Alex Jones and say, Alex, you got to get this done, Alex. Right? You need to go tell Trump that we are under martial law. Right? It's already happened, Alex. It's here. Been here since 1863. Symbolized by the American flag. Wherever it is, that's an Army installation. It's the only place that flag can fly. And I didn't say it, the Army did. So ask your Army guys to go read AR 840-10, 840-10, and see what it says. You only got to read the first 2 chapters. Jeepers, man. Army Regulation 840-10, flags, guide iron streamers, tabards, and automobile and aircraft plates. Right? This is situational awareness. Where am I? Well, when you walk in that courtroom with that flag, you just walked into a court of the United States, court-martial court. Or it's a counterfeit, and these people are only pretending to be a court-martial court or military tribunal. Use whatever term you want to call it. You need to tell them that you're protected under the Geneva Convention. And ask your attorney, how come I'm being charged in a fictitious name? And how come my accuser's in a fictitious name? And how come they didn't swear to their complaint? And how come if we're in this court with a gold fringe flag, we're not, under military rules? And let your attorney get some answers and come back and tell all of us what they have to say. I know what's going on. I just don't know how to make them stop. That's what I'm trying to do now is figure out how am I get these people to stop. Well, one way is make more noise, and I'm going to try to use Alex Jones as a bullhorn. Okay, brother, I'm going to leave it there. Thank you very much for your service. And, if the Army has any questions, tell them to get a hold of Rob Ryder, ROBBRYDER. My information's on all these websites. I know that they're watching me anyways, Alex. It's just, for whatever reason, they're a little standoffish. So either I'm crazy or I'm right. And, well, no, it's not that. I could be both. But hey, that's good enough for today. You have a great day. See ya. Take care.